You're standing in your backyard on a perfectly ordinary afternoon. The sky is still blue, the grass is green, and the birds at the feeder are singing like nothing in the world is wrong. Your weather app agrees. Clear skies all day. So you go back inside. But here's what you didn't notice. The birds weren't just eating, they were eating fast, with a kind of focused urgency that has nothing to do with hunger. The bees that were working the clover an hour ago are simply gone. And along the base of your fence, a line of ants is moving with unusual discipline, carrying everything toward higher ground. The sky is still completely clear. Your backyard already knows a storm is coming. It figured that out hours before any satellite did. And the science behind that's genuinely one of the more elegant things I've ever come across. This is backyard biology. If you've ever noticed animals in your yard acting just a little off before a storm and couldn't quite explain it, leave a like now. Because that quiet pattern you sensed has a real scientific answer. And if you want to start seeing your backyard in a completely different way, consider subscribing. This channel is about turning the ordinary into something you can't unsee. Have you ever watched your backyard go strangely quiet right before the weather changed? A few hours before a storm ever shows itself, something invisible begins to shift. The air above you, all of it stretching miles into the sky, starts to lose weight. This is what we call barometric pressure. Quite literally, the weight of the atmosphere pressing down on everything in your backyard. And as a storm approaches, that weight quietly drops. No dark clouds yet, no wind, no obvious warning, just lighter air settling in long before your eyes have anything to report. What's remarkable is how sensitive animals are to that change. Certain birds can detect variations in pressure as small as 1 millimeter of mercury, kind of difference you'd just experience by walking up a gentle hill less than 10 meters high. It's a shift so subtle that to us it simply doesn't register, but to them it's immediate. Their bodies are constantly reading the atmosphere in a way that feels less like perception and more like direct contact with the physics of the air itself. So what looks like restlessness, birds feeding faster, moving more sharply, changing their patterns, isn't random at all. It's not a vague instinct or some poetic connection to nature. It's a precise biological response to measurable physical change. They are reacting to data in real time with a level of sensitivity most of our instruments only approximate. Insects follow the same rule, just closer to the ground. Bees will return early to the hive when pressure begins to fall, abandoning flowers mid-task. Ants, in turn, start relocating resources, often building upward or sealing entrances as if anticipating what's coming. These behaviors have been studied and repeated enough times to earn a simple explanation. They're responding to a natural barometer embedded in their bodies, but the birds in your yard aren't just responding to pressure. They're doing something far stranger, and it starts with a sound you will never hear. Long before the first drop of rain, a storm is already making noise, not the kind you can hear, but something deeper. Infrasonic waves below 20 hertz, far beneath the range of human hearing. These sounds are generated by massive atmospheric disturbances and can travel hundreds of kilometers ahead of the storm itself. By the time the sky above you looks threatening, that signal has already passed through your backyard. There's a well-documented case that makes this harder to dismiss as coincidence. Researchers at the University of Tennessee tracked golden-winged warblers during their breeding season and noticed something unusual. They abruptly abandoned their nesting sites days before a severe tornado system moved through the area. At that point, there were no visible signs of danger, and no official weather alerts had been issued. The study, later highlighted by National Geographic, pointed to infrasonic waves as the most plausible trigger, a cue the birds detected long before humans had any awareness of what was coming. The useful way to think about it is this. It's like sensing something is wrong with your car because of a faint vibration in the steering wheel, long before any warning light appears on the dashboard. The system is already failing. You just don't have the instrument to read it yet. Birds do, days before. And the birds in your backyard, pigeons, sparrows, starlings, aren't exceptions. They carry the same evolutionary hardware, tuned over thousands of generations to pick up signals we simply cannot access. When they vanish, when the usual noise of wings and calls suddenly drops away, it's not random. They didn't flee without reason. They responded to something real, something already in motion. And if the birds are gone, there's something else that's already happening underground. Something that changes everything you thought you knew about your lawn. Right now, as you watch this, it's already happening under your backyard. Beneath the grass, the soil is quietly shifting, not just in moisture, but in pressure and vibration. Earthworms, which spend most of their lives moving through narrow channels underground, begin rising toward the surface hours before rain arrives. It's not sluchino. Their bodies are highly sensitive to changes in soil saturation and the subtle tremors that travel through the ground as weather systems build overhead. Researchers studying earthworm behavior have linked this movement to changes in water pressure within the soil, as well as low-frequency vibrations transmitted through the lard itself. As rain approaches, the ground becomes denser with moisture, making it harder for worms to breathe through their skin. At the same time, distant thunder and atmospheric disturbances send faint vibrations downward. The result is a coordinated migration upward. Not panic, but adaptation. And this pattern doesn't stop at your backyard. In coastal waters off Florida, tagged sharks have been observed diving into deeper layers of the ocean hours before hurricanes make landfall. The trigger isn't visual, it's pressure. Specifically, a drop in hydrostatic pressure that mirrors the atmospheric changes happening above land. Different environment, same physics. The ocean and your backyard are responding to a shared signal, just expressed through different mediums, which means that every time you've walked across your lawn, you've been standing on top of a living network of sensors, organisms constantly measuring shifts in the environment with far greater sensitivity than anything built into your phone. It's been active your entire life, quietly processing information you were never meant to notice. But the most precise storm sensor in your backyard isn't underground, it's singing. There's a quieter signal most people overlook, even when it's right outside their window. Crickets. In 1897, physicist Amos Dolbear noticed something precise about their song. The rate of chirping changes with temperature in a predictable way. Count the chirps over 13 seconds, add 40, and you get the temperature in Fahrenheit, usually within a few degrees. It's simple, repeatable, and still works today. A small equation, embedded in a living organism, but the signal doesn't stop at temperature. Subtle shifts in the rhythm, spacing, and intensity of chirps, along with the patterns of cicadas, have been linked to changes in humidity and atmospheric pressure, conditions that tend to move ahead of storms. What sounds like background noise is, in effect, a continuous stream of environmental data. Your backyard isn't just alive, it's broadcasting. And sometimes the signal scales far beyond a single afternoon. A study published in Scientific Reports, based on nearly 2 decades of observation, found that the breeding behavior of a migratory bird called the veery correlated with the intensity of upcoming Atlantic hurricane seasons months in advance. In certain years, their nesting patterns aligned more closely with storm activity than some of the leading forecasting models available at the time. Not perfect, but unexpectedly accurate for something that never leaves the forest edge. What's striking is where these animals live. Not in controlled labs or remote wilderness, but in the margins of ordinary life. Backyards, city parks, the thin line where neighborhoods meet trees. The same places you move through without thinking, coffee in hand, assuming the environment is quiet simply because you don't know how to read it, which makes you wonder, if your backyard has been reading the weather all along, what else has it been reading? What else has it been trying to tell you? There's something quietly unsettling about this once the pattern settles in. The most ordinary creatures in your backyard, the ant tracing a line along the fence, the cricket repeating its small equation in the dark, the sparrow at the feeder, each carries a level of precision that our best instruments still struggle to match outside controlled systems. Not because they are extraordinary, but because they are exactly what they needed to become, shaped by pressures far older than anything we've built. We launch satellites, model atmospheres, feed data into supercomputers to predict what the sky will do next. And often we're right, but sometimes the pigeon on your roof adjusted its behavior hours earlier, not by chance, and not by magic, by design, or rather, by evolution. Tens of millions of years refining sensory systems that are tuned, quite specifically, to shifts in pressure, vibration, and sound that we only recently learned how to measure. Which raises an uncomfortable question. How long have you been looking at your backyard and seeing only background? Grass, birds, insects, movement without meaning? Something decorative or at best incidental? What if it hasn't been silent at all? What if it's been transmitting signals constantly and you simply never learned the language? Because this isn't metaphor. It's measurable, repeatable science. And what that science suggests is difficult to ignore. You are not surrounded by passive nature. You are standing inside a distributed system of a perception, a network of living sensors, each one reading the environment with a clarity we rarely achieve, even with intention. The storm doesn't arrive in your backyard. It's announced there, quietly, patiently, in a language that was never meant for us. But maybe it's time we started listening. The pressure drops hours before anything appears. The animals already know. Birds pick up sounds that travel hundreds of kilometers, long before the storm gets close. Earthworms read the soil as it shifts beneath the surface. Crickets turn temperature into rhythm, repeating it into the night, and in at least one case, a single species of bird anticipated an entire hurricane season more accurately than the models we trusted. All of it happening quietly, in the same space you move through every day. Your backyard has been reading the weather long before you ever checked it on the screen. Your yard doesn't wait for the forecast. It is the forecast. If even one of these details changes how you'll look at your backyard tomorrow morning, leaving a like is the simplest way to say that. And if you want to keep discovering what's been hiding in plain sight this whole time, subscribe. Because every week there's something out there waiting to be seen, and this is where you learn how to see it. What's the one animal in your yard you've always ignored, but now you're not so sure about? If this made you want to go deeper into how the natural world actually works, I put together everything I know about this in the description. It's worth your time.